Hi, I'm Eric Vanman, a social neuroscientist at the University of Queensland, and I've been teaching now for about 27 years in the university setting, and I've had over 10,000 students. I've had several Ph.D. students. You can pretty much imagine that I've had my share of experiences with different students in terms of those who've had success and those who didn't do so well. And so I thought I'd share with you my opinions about 3 keys to success as a student. Whether you're still in high school, you're at university, maybe think about doing a PhD or postgrad, whatever it is, these to me are the 3 keys to success as a student. The first one I think is important is a willingness to learn. The second is to always ask questions. And the third is to show up. Put those 3 together, and I think you're going to do very well. Now you might notice that I didn't say you have to be really intelligent, you have to do all your homework. I'm just saying these 3 things are the things that I think differentiate those students who do well versus the students who don't do as well. Let's start with a willingness to learn. There was a recent article in the New York Times written by a professor in which he talked about what he thought was the secret to success at college or at university. And what he thought was probably the most important thing was having an open mind, that you're curious and you're willing to learn. But as he says in this article, and it's something I agree with and I've seen many times before, is there are a couple obstacles that keep people from being willing to learn when they're at university or in school. First one he talks about is careerism, which is a problem that we face at universities. We really would love to have our students always be interested in every little thing that we're saying philosophically or some theory that we're talking about in the class or whatever it is, and really want to engage in the issues. But a lot of our students are just really interested in getting a degree so they can get a job and move on in their lives. So that means that they're not necessarily there to learn as much as they are just to figure out what they need to do to get their degree. And so there's not much of a willingness to learn if you're really focused on the fact that you think school is there for you to get a degree. The second obstacle that he talks about in this article is something called knowingness. And knowingness is this belief that you kind of already know everything already, or at least that you should present to the world that you know everything already. This is a really difficult one that I've seen in a lot of my students. That is, they had a little bit of education, maybe they actually went to a really good high school, they got to university and they already feel like they know everything there is to know. That they've already learned everything, and therefore when they talk to me or they talk to their fellow students, they should appear or present to other people as if they already are experts in this. And this even happens when they go on to graduate school and do a PhD. I can't tell you how many times I've seen PhD students who, with just maybe a few months under their belt, already acting like they're an expert in this field. And you might think, well, why not? Like, why not be an expert in that field? The thing is, those of us who've been around quite a long time in our field know how much we don't actually know. That is, we're really quite aware of the fact that the more we learn, the more we realize there's a huge amount that we don't actually know. So if you really think about it this way, that you're just getting a little bit of expertise on a little teeny bit of an area, and as you start to learn more about that particular area, you'll find that there's just many more articles to read, many more research papers. There's just so much more to comprehend and understand that you won't ever feel like you really know it all. And keeping that sort of humility about this, that you are actually going to know everything and you're not really an expert yet, allows you then to be really willing to learn. That is, you're willing to go to seminars, to see your lecturers speak, to read a book about something that you haven't actually learned about before. Keeping an open mind and open to learning is really the key then. So if you can get over this knowingness, this thing that you have to present to everybody that you know everything already, and be more humble about what you don't know, I think that's really key to success as a student. I just want to interrupt here and say that if you really are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing, as it helps me with the algorithm in YouTube and making sure that other people can see this video. My second key to success is to ask questions. Now, this is something that you probably have heard about many times before, that when you're a student, you should ask questions if you don't understand. And of course, there's a lot of students who are shy about this. They don't want to ask questions in the middle of a lecture or middle of a classroom because they don't want to look like they're stupid or that they're being too interested in the class, whatever it is. But seriously, we are there, those of us who do teaching, to answer your questions, to help you understand and to clarify your knowledge about whatever the topic is. So really, you should be seeking out questions as much as you can. And if you are the kind of person who's really shy, that you don't like to come to that big lecture hall and ask a question, why not go see us during our office hours? Most professors, most lecturers, most teachers have times when they're not in front of the entire class, when we just sit there waiting for students to come by and see us. At my university, I have a couple hours a week. I'm lucky if 1 or 2 students show up in any given week during a semester, but I sit there the entire time at my desk waiting for someone to come and ask me questions about stuff. And not just necessarily the questions about the lecture. They might want to ask me questions about psychology in general, maybe what they might want to do after they're done, basically what could they do with this degree, all sorts of things like that, where I have all this experience, all of this knowledge that I would love to impart to a student who wanted to ask that question. So come to our office hours, come to spend some time with us, and if it helps, maybe bring a friend. If you don't want to be alone with that lecturer professor, you think it's too intimidating to do that, you could come with another classmate and ask questions. So ask questions, really a key to success as a student. Now, number 3 is showing up. And this is going to probably seem like an obvious one maybe, but it's really not as obvious as you might think. So when I was in graduate school in California, I had a professor who was really interested in trying to predict which Ph.D. students were going to go on to be successful. And one of the things he did is he looked at all of our GRE scores, our grade point averages, our number of publications. He took every metric he could. One of the things that he also measured was he asked the faculty, the professors in that department, about each of the students that were in the program, about how often they saw them. Like, is this somebody that you see a lot? Is this somebody you hardly know at all? You could rate people basically on how visible they were in the department, each of the students. And he found that of all of the things that he was measuring, the only thing that predicted success after the person received their graduate degree was whether or not they were visible. So the more visible, the more they showed up to their department, the more they were likely to do successfully afterwards. Now, showing up then means like coming to class, obviously. So if you're still in high school, you might not have much of a choice there. You could say coming to lecture or going to your tutorials, your discussion sections. Obviously, that's an important place for you to show up. But also, I think showing up to any other kind of activities that are around, where you might see professors, you might see staff, you might see other students. So for example, coming to a school seminar, coming to a workshop and where you learn a new skill. These are kind of the things that are extra beyond just reading your book and watching the lecture and taking notes and taking exams. Showing up, being there, being visible. And as you can tell, I strongly recommend that if you're going to do a PhD, why not come to every seminar you possibly can, be involved, talk to people, let the staff know who you are. I think all of that is signs of someone who's actually going to do well. Now, I should point out, we don't know about the causality in this finding. It could be that maybe that professor that I was talking about from a long time ago who did this analysis, that maybe the causation was that people who are successful are more likely to show up. It's not because they showed up that they became successful. Fine, that's possible. It really is possible that perhaps if you're the kind of person who would normally show up anyway, you're probably also going to be the kind of person that becomes successful. But you can't deny the fact that by showing up, people are going to get to know who you are. They're going to remember you when they need to do letters of reference, recommendations for scholarships, for prizes. When we're trying to, sitting in a committee with other staff members and we're trying to think, who could we nominate for this year's annual award and blah, blah. It's easier to think of a student that we see all the time than someone who hardly ever shows up, right? So that's another reason why I think this is a really good piece of advice. So those are my 3 keys to success. I am going to include a link to that New York Times article if you want to see the professor's advice here about what he thinks of in terms of success. That'd be great. I also would really be interested in hearing your suggestions, your comments or questions about what makes a successful student. And you can put those in the comments here for this video and I'll try to respond to it. But nevertheless, I appreciate you watching this video and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks.